record. It's been a minute since I've recorded a new episode. And today's guest is Deb Krier. Welcome to the show, Deb.
Hello, Lori. How are you doing?
I'm doing fan-fucking-tastic.
Yay! Not fine.
Not fine at all. Let's just jump right into it, because before I hit record, we were talking about some good stuff, and I want to get back to that. Yeah, we were talking about expect the unexpected, and how does somebody expect? Like, how do you do that? You know, you hear people say expect the unexpected.
Yeah,
well, it's unexpected. How do you expect it?
Right. You know, and which is almost like, okay, we shouldn't plan. Well, no, we still have to plan, right? But we have to know that things can change. You know, it might rain. We might not be able to have the barbecue. Favorite employee might quit. All these various things. And so I think it's more about being flexible.
Yes. Flexible is a great word.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's start off with the question I love asking all of my guests, and that is, what were the values and beliefs that you were raised with that contributed to you becoming who you are?
You know, so I'm an only child. With a mother who was very, very strong. You know, loved my dad dearly, but he worked a lot. And so it really did fall on my mom. And that was just, I mean, you know, the nature of their relationship was she was in charge. You know, he knew we had a bank account, and he knew where it was because I grew up in a very small town. And so there was a bank, right? Okay. But he couldn't now. I'm pretty sure he could have written checks. I mean, you know, just but yeah, mom was in charge of all of that. She went to work when I was really fairly small, so I was what they would have called at that time a latchkey kid. Right? You came home and you fixed yourself a little snack and you watched TV. You know, and you knew, don't go out, you know, even though it was a small town, it was you go home. But I always knew from her that women could do whatever they wanted, you know, and so like now I am a baby boomer, right at the very tail end. So it still wasn't overly encouraged for us to go to college. There was no question. You know, it was, you are going to college. I mean, that was just and they really didn't care what I studied or where I went, but it was, you are going to college. And so I learned how important education was, you know, all of these things. And it's really funny. My mom passed away in March. And one of the things that she wanted at her funeral, because being the person she was, she had it written out years ago, was the Frank Sinatra version. That was specific of I Did It My Way. And I think that was very much it. Was, you know, I was raised to know I am independent. I don't rely on anybody else. That's great if there is a partner, you know, whether it's personal, professional, whatever, but it's me, and I have to be the one who is in charge.
Did that also cause you to have issues around like letting other people help you?
Oh, yes. You know, part of it is, I think I'm a perfectionist, and, you know, well, if somebody else does it, it might not be right. You know, and so I want to be in charge. And I've recently really learned, because I've had people in my life who have been telling me, delegate, you know, and knowing that even if they do it differently, it might actually be better. Yikes. That's a hard thing to handle, right? But yeah, just letting go of stuff and giving people the grace and honor them by letting them do it. You know, and even if it's not right and we need to fix it, well, usually the world has not stopped. Right. You know, and so yeah, it is kind of one of those things. But yeah, my mom was definitely very much the in-charge person. It was really funny when I first got sick. And well, I know we're going to talk about that. But, you know, I was very, very ill. And so she flew from Kansas to be here. Like I said, I'm an only child. And as my husband put it, she didn't come to provide support. She came to take charge. And that didn't happen because he was the one who was still in charge. But for 4.5 months while she was here, it was definitely a lot of fighting between them, and then between she and I, because she wanted to be in charge. And it was like, no, you're not. You're not in charge.
How did she, well, it sounds like she didn't handle that very well. But when you pushed back and kind of made her accept that, how did that go?
Oh, not well. You know, and I think part of it, you know, like the final straw, so to speak, was, you know, I was home, you know, taking care of myself, still not doing well. And so but when she started rearranging my kitchen, it was like, nope, time for you to go home. Yeah, you know, and yeah, and when we sat her down and said, it's time, she didn't handle it well. You know, she said, well, but what if something else goes wrong? And I said, it will, and then we'll deal with it. You know, I even said, you want to leave stuff here? No, she never came back. Even when I was in the hospital again, and there were times where, you know, she just, you know, the funnier thing was my husband went from being golden boy to not so much, you know, because she decided it was his fault.
So, okay. Wow. What did she do as a job? I'm just curious.
She was the secretary for the local doctor. And, you know, it was, I think part of the reason she liked that, between you and me and our listeners, was she got to know a lot about the people in the small town. Now she never shared it. I mean, you know, she was always very discreet, but yeah, you know, she got to know what was going on where a lot of other people didn't.
Yeah.
And whether it was their medical or their finances, because she also did the billing.
Right. Okay. So that probably fed into her ego.
Right. Oh yeah.
I know more than I know more and about stuff that nobody else knows.
Right.
Cool.
You know, and I do know that I'm very similar to her, which is part of why we fought a lot. You know, it was just, we had two very strong personalities going up against each other.
Yeah. And that happens a lot with mothers and daughters. Like,
right.
People from the outside don't understand that relationship, or sometimes the dads or the brothers, they're like, oh my God, stand back. What's happening right now?
Oh yeah. You know, I mean, the people who, and you know, it's been a challenge since she has been gone, but and she died on her own terms. I mean, you know, that was something too, but you know, it was actually really nice hearing all the people saying how wonderful she was, because she wasn't that way with me. And, you know, and I learned long ago not to complain, because they were like, your mom's this fabulous person. Well, with me, she wasn't. And, you know, we just kind of always had those battles, but it really was very nice to hear all the really good things that people said after she passed.
Yeah, to see somebody from a different perspective,
right?
More objective perspective,
right?
Yeah. So let's talk about like the time when so your education was important. You became independent. Like, how
didn't get married until I was in my 30s.
Okay, I was just gonna ask that.
And no kids.
Yeah. Right. Was that in part because of the relationship you had with your mom, or you just chose that you wanted to be more independent?
I just wanted to be more independent. You know, and plus I think, you know, had to wait to find somebody who was going to put up with me. But yeah, it was, and you know, we've been married now for over 30 years. I think it was, you know, I didn't, and maybe it was seeing a lot of the young women that I grew up with thinking they had to be married and they had to have kids. Now, for some of them, it was fabulous. I mean, like I still am in, you know, contact. There were 32 in my graduating class. So I'm still in contact with quite a few of them. And several of them are still married to their high school sweethearts. And I think that is just the sweetest thing in the world. You know, and being wife and mother was their ultimate goal. Great, fabulous for them. And it worked. I mean, it worked. It would not have worked for me. And I think that was the thing that I learned very early on, was to do what's going to work for you, not what society thinks. I mean, I remember my 10-year high school reunion when I went back. One of my classmates actually told me that I would not feel fulfilled until I had children. And I remember looking at him thinking, dude, you're on your third marriage.
Of course it was a dude. Of course
it was a dude. Oh yeah. Yeah. And I really, you know, I did not say, but I really wanted to say, go fuck off, dude.
Yeah. Right. And yeah, we're not not going to get all into it, but yeah, some football players are still saying that.
Oh yeah, he was the football. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you went off and became your independent self,
right,
and everything was fine,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Until when?
Until pretty much I got my cancer diagnosis. You know, and things were really going, you know, the way that we had thought. You know, we were transferred from the Denver location. My husband was transferred by his company down to Atlanta. Made it a lot easier to move, not having kids and things like that. I mean, you know, we just, okay. And his option was move or lose your job. And we went, okay, no, we don't like that. But so, you know, we were down here, we were doing really well. I went for my annual checkup and had my, you know, annual mammogram, and I wasn't even home. And they called and said, you need to come back. You know, and I worked for an oncologist and I worked for the American Cancer Society. So I know just enough to be dangerous. And I knew that was not, you know, I wiggled when they were taking my mammogram. It was, they had seen something. And they did, you know, and at that point it was still, you know, they said, hey, this is going to be something that's really easy to treat. Don't worry about it. I didn't get an oncologist for several months. And so it was more, I distinctly remember telling my doctor, I'm sorry, this is not on my schedule. You know, but then things changed very rapidly because they discovered that the cancer had spread. And so, you know, that was when it was like, oh crap. You know, this is going to be very different than what I had originally thought. And I think that really was the biggest challenge. Was this was no longer easy peasy. This was, we're going to have to get really serious about this.
So here's where it comes back to the expect the unexpected.
I know. Like I said, it wasn't on my schedule. I'm sorry. No, that's not there.
I don't have this penciled into my very busy schedule.
Yeah. Like, I have plans. You're screwing up my plans.
Right. And so what happens to those plans? Like, everything goes out the window, right? Because your entire focus has to be on getting healthy.
It was, you know, and it was funny because they went south really bad. I ended up with a complication from the chemo and I chose a very traditional route. I was going to do chemo, I was going to do surgery, I was going to do radiation. I know there's a lot of people who choose something different. Fabulous for them. You know, and you know, and would I do things a little bit differently? I might, especially because things went so bad. I got a complication that less than 1% of people get, because I have to be special. You know, and you know, and it was like, I ended up with septic shock. I mean, you know, which is usually fatal. I mean, you know, it's 75% of the time, I think, is the stat. Ended up in the hospital for over 7 weeks, lots of multiple surgeries, lots of other complications. But I still kept thinking, but I'm an entrepreneur. I have this business. And, you know, when I was able to, I was, you know, having other people do, you know, what needed to be done. You know, my clients all said, you tell us what you need. You know, which was incredibly important. I didn't lose anybody during that time. They just said, okay, we'll change our plans until you're able to come back. And so that was great. Had several other complications after that, you know, but when I was able to, I got back into my new normal life as fast as I could. I tell people hospitals and doctors' offices now have really good Wi-Fi. I actually had a treatment yesterday. I was in the oncologist's office. I have a port in my shoulder. They hooked me up. I sit there with the IV on doing my work. You know, and part of that is because I need that to focus on. You know, we need to still think we're in control because our bodies are kind of going at us. And, you know, working is how I can still be in control.
What's your business? Is it the same business?
It is the same business. I actually started it many years ago. It's called Wise Women Communications, and it is a marketing firm. And so we focus primarily right now on doing social media for senior living communities. You know, and part of it, you know, I'll think, oh, whiny, and I'll see these wonderful seniors who have, you know, gone through an awful lot. out there doing whatever. And I'm like, okay, you don't have any right to whine because they're doing fabulous. But yeah, I mean, I can do an awful lot with my phone. You know? And so that I think was one of the biggies, was to just keep going.
Yes, keep going. And a lot of times you hear that, like, let go and let God, or let go, you know, whether you believe in God or whatever, but just like letting go of the outcomes. Is that something that you...
Not really. And you know, and I was told that, you know, one of the things that quite a few people said was, you know, whoever is not going to give you anything more than what you can deal with. Okay, maybe, but I'm still in charge. I'm the one deciding this is what I'm going to do for treatment. This is what I'm going to do for this, that, you know, everything else. And, you know, it's what I tell people is, you know, you as, and I don't call them patients. You call me a patient, I get really annoyed. We are warriors. And, you know, because we're in this fight for our life. And, you know, and I tell them, we are the people in charge, not our doctors, not our spouses, not whoever. We are the ones in charge. Now, you know, I do understand that for some people, their faith is incredibly important. And I love it when people tell me they're praying for me. That's just part of, because it's, to me, it's that whole support bubble, right? But
right. And
yeah,
there's science that shows that
oh yeah,
has an effect.
Oh, I know that it does. Yeah. You know, the when I go in for things, I'm actually next month going to have surgical procedure number 34. You know, more chops, more cuts, more anesthesia. Like, so my brain will get rattled. Again. I know that it's really funny. They're like, oh, I know, God, she's back. I'm like the repeat customer. But I know whenever I'm in there, I'm not alone. I have all these people sending their thoughts, sending their prayers, sending their whatevers. And that helps me because that is one of the things people tell me, is that they feel very alone when they're going through this. And I think part of it is we don't want to reach out. We don't want to be a bother. We don't want to whine. So we don't. And what we tell people when they say, how are you doing? We say, I'm fine.
Yeah, I want to back up to something you said about being in charge. And I think that is relevant whether you're having medical procedures and dealing with doctors or anything in your life. Because I had a text conversation yesterday with a friend, and she was talking about, well, my therapist said this, this, and this, so this is what I'm going to do. And I'm like, well, you should be the one. Like, just because somebody who's a professional is telling you what they think you should do, what is your body or your mind or like your inner voice telling you to do?
Oh yeah. You know, I tell people my oncologist is who's in charge. You know, but I do it in a joking way because she and I have you know, after everything that I've been through, she and I have a very good relationship. And so she makes suggestions, but she's not in charge. You know, and yeah, ultimately it's my decision as to what is going forward with everything.
Right. You take the counsel, you take the professional advice and all of that, and then you make the decision that feels right for you.
Yep. Yeah. Which is why, you know, sometimes people don't have treatment. And it's funny because that goes back to when I worked for the oncologist, which was a long time ago. It was 35 plus years ago. And he was one of these people. And 35 years ago, you know, it was, you do this. No, he didn't. He would give them the information, and they would then do what they wanted. And I remember we had this one lady, now I was office staff, certainly not medical staff, but we had this one lady who I remember then thinking, oh, she's old. She's probably like 60, right?
60 was much older back then.
I know, especially when I was in my 20s. And she said, I'm having no treatment. I'm going to take all that money and go on an around the world cruise. And she did. But what we did was we gave her a copy of all of her medical records. And, you know, and the doctor did not try and talk her out of it because he said, you know, it's in your head. You know, if you think this will help, it will. If you think it won't, it won't. And, you know, but he gave her a copy of all of her medical records because unfortunately, and this has not changed, if you pass away in a foreign country, it's difficult in many cases for your family then to get your body back. And yeah, it's because they need to make sure, what's going on. I mean, all sorts of things. And so we gave her a copy of her medical records to make that much easier for her family. We got postcards from her for a while, and then they stopped. And we chose to believe that she just got too busy to send us postcards. But yeah, it was, that was how she was going to deal with it. And my doctor said, that's great.
Yeah, because life is about living.
Right.
Right. Like even after we pass away, the celebration of life.
Right.
Versus the mourning of a death. I mean, they can be both, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What other things have you done? Because you've been managing this situation for quite a while. Besides the treatments that you already talked about, what else are you doing to manage your state of mind?
I think part of it is knowing that there are crappy times and I'm going to feel bad, and it's okay to have the pity parties. You just don't want to get stuck there. Like I said, I mean, I'm going to have a procedure next month that is surgical procedure number 34. I'm not happy about that, but it is, I have kidney stones, and they need to come out because they're big stones. And so we need to go in and we need to take those out. But, and so I can be annoyed, I can feel bad, but then it's okay. Now what are we going to do? And so, but it's also making sure you have the right people around you. Those toxic people, whether it's well, grandma had the same type of cancer and she died. Yeah. Right. I love those. Right. I'm like, oh my God. And which you'd be surprised how many times you hear that.
I'm not surprised at all, because they assume that if somebody else had this, then that's what's going to happen to you.
Right. Oh yeah.
Like you're not your own individual.
Yeah. And every diagnosis is different. I mean, the diagnosis might be the same. That's where it ends. Yep. And so, but yeah, and it's not paying attention to the news, right?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. The world will not end if whoever is president, right? And I mean, and all of the various things that are just so toxic on TV, on social, all of those, I can choose to change the channel and to scroll on, or to not have the conversations with people. It's like, oh, so-and-so is calling, they're going into my voicemail. And just getting rid of all the toxic people as much as you can, and choosing to be positive. I have people who tell me that I'm the most positive person they've ever met. And what I tell them is that's what I put out there. When I'm not happy, when I'm not feeling good, I just don't let people know. And so they see me but they also know that it's not always happy, sunshine and roses.
Right. So it's two points here is one, allow yourself to feel what it is you feel the emotions. Like,
oh yeah.
It sounds like also going back to how you were raised, that you were maybe not encouraged to have emotions.
No, you're very right about that. It was your stiff, I think my mother should have been British, right? You have to have a stiff upper lip. It was kind of like how we tell boys they can't cry.
So how did you then learn to allow yourself to feel those emotions?
It's still hard. I'll be on, and I think more than anything, I feel anger. So I'm actually on my third diagnosis. Last summer I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And when my doctor called, and when the doctor calls, it's never good, right? Especially when you're in my case. And so I answered the phone, and she said, well, yeah, it's papillary thyroid cancer. And I literally told her, well, fuck. And she bursts out laughing, and she says, that's why you'll get through this just fine. It was funny. I had an appointment with her yesterday, but, it's one of those things where, I deal with it more kind of with anger, but then knowing, okay, we're going to go on, whatever comes next, we deal with, however it is. My expiration date probably has been moved up, but, okay, I could also get hit by a bus tomorrow.
Right. So what's your theory on like the whole idea of when it's your time, it's your time?
I think when it's my time, it's my time. And it was really funny. I mentioned my mom, the Tuesday, so she passed away on a Wednesday. The Monday before, we'd had the funniest conversation on the phone. So that's my last connection with her. That Tuesday, she went out to lunch. She had dinner with friends, lunch with friends. I mean, all sorts of stuff. And by noon that next day, she passed away. I think she went, nope, I'm done. And so, but my philosophy in many cases is don't put stuff off. These people who have their bucket lists that are, when I retire, I'm going to do X or all of those. Now, financially, I mean, there's, but okay, maybe it's not that you can travel around the world, but you can do it digitally. So there's all sorts of things. So don't put off. And I also tell people that I love them. I think that's one of the funny things. And every once in a while people are like, oh my God. And it has to be real and those things. But yeah, or even just thank you so much. I appreciate what you're doing. Because we might not get the chance to tell them again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, gratitude's my jam. So it's all about telling people, it might be a little off-putting when you say to the barista that you love them, but
yeah, but you know what? Telling them thank you so much.
Yes.
Because a lot of people don't.
Well, and I saw a post recently that said, saying I love you sometimes looks like this. And it could be like, thank you for.
Right. Gratitude is I love the service that you provide.
Right. That could be another way of saying I love you, but in a less awkward way.
Right. And of course, sometimes. Love you, man.
Right. Exactly. But again, like gratitude is the highest energetic vibration that we can achieve. And so you can spend the most time possible there. That increased energetic vibration contributes to your health.
Right. Oh yeah. I tell people every day that I wake up and I'm not looking up at 6 feet of dirt, I'm really glad. And every once in a while somebody will be like, oh my God. And I'm like, no, you need to understand it's a really good thing.
Yeah. Well, and do people get squirrely around talking about death? Like, has that been your experience?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I know they do, but I wanted to know your experience.
They do, and it's more the level of what they know about me. I've done quite a few podcasts, and I tell the wonderful hosts, I will answer anything you want. Whether it's things that happened during my treatment, all sorts of things. And I am, I'm really out there with, this is what's going on and here's what I've had, as long as I know people want to hear it. Right. They don't want to, and there are things that I don't tell people. They don't need to know some of the oogies that go along with a lot of this. But I remember when I was really, really ill, I have this wonderful friend who's been a huge support system for me. And she had, at that point, they were young kids, 4 young kids, and they all homeschooled. So when she would come to visit me, I would have these plethora of kids. And I remember the first time I told her, I said, what do you want me to say around them? I mean, and she said, be honest. They need to know that this, and I'm like, okay. And so, and it was so funny because one of them, who's now this beautiful teenage girl, I had obviously lost my hair. And we met in a restaurant, and this little voice, because at that point she was probably about 7. Oh my God, your hair's come back. And everybody in the restaurant looks at you. But that was just the funniest thing in the world. And I loved it because they'd been through that experience with me. And so, but yeah, there are people, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to think about, hey, this could end. I'm, like with my mom, I was really glad that I didn't have, that my last conversation with her was really funny. She was, I live in Atlanta. She lives in Kansas. And we were actually we had flown to Las Vegas. And so having to deal with that, but yeah, I mean, I did not have a final conversation with her, and I'm really glad that we didn't. Now, at the same point, she had people with her. She was not alone. That was very important also. But it's just something that happens, and we need to get over being afraid of it.
Yeah, right. Because it it's a natural part of
Mm-hmm.
life.
Right. Yeah, we all have, nobody gets out of this without dying.
Yeah. That's okay. What are you doing differently, or is there anything that you're doing differently? Like now, you said already that you were like more living in the moment, or more doing the things that, like, not putting stuff off, but it seems like you maybe always lived that way.
Nah, I mean, sometimes I put stuff off. What I really try and do is to show my gratitude. It's funny. One of the times when I was in the hospital and some medical person came in and left, and and I got the disapproving mother face, and I went, "What?" And she said, "You did not say thank you." And I said, "Oh, for God's sakes, Mom, I'm trying to not die here." But which is kind of why we named the initiative the way we did. But at the same point, it's like, we need to be grateful, and don't sweat the small stuff. It's like, okay, does that really matter? No. Okay, then let's not get overexcited about it. But I do have the temper that goes with the red hair that is now enhanced, as we say. But so I kind of have to watch that. But it is, really thinking about, okay, when I send an email to somebody, am I ending it with "thank you so much"? Just little things like that. But you're right, it comes back.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything you put out comes back to you. You mentioned your initiative. I want you to share what that is before we wrap up. So tell me about what the initiative is.
Short and sweet, it is called tryingnottodie.live. And that is the website URL, tryingnottodie.live. And it's all about how we as warriors build our tribe and get the people around us. What is the support that we need? It's for the tribe members also. One of the biggest questions I get is, oh my gosh, my friend, my wife, my whoever has cancer and I don't know what to do. And so they don't do anything. And then we think, oh, they don't love us. It's because they don't know how to talk about it, and they don't want to make us feel worse and all of those things. So, how can we help those people? But it is about how can we help everybody get through this in a better way? And we have to remember it, rather than trying to not die, we need to be living. Yes. Maybe it's 5 hours. With my mom, it was 4. She told her sister, I don't feel good. And 4 hours later, she was gone. Maybe it's 40 more years. Who knows? But we need to be living our lives, whether we have cancer or not, during that time.
Absolutely. Well, you have such a high level of energy, at least the times that I've interacted with you.
Thank you. And it's just a little bit of coffee.
A little bit of coffee, okay. So I have to also ask you though, what is the music? What's the song you listen to when you need an even extra boost of energy on top of the caffeine?
There's several, and it's funny because I'm a Garth Brooks fan, so The Dance is one, and then I can never remember the actual name of the other song that I listen to, but it is about not, living your life and going. I very much like music. I will have it on. I like, they call it yacht rock, right? And so, I was so bummed when Jimmy Buffett died. I was like, oh man.
Who was
but
it?
I know. But yeah, that type of music. But there are times where it's like, nope, I need something that's a little more chill. But yeah, music is very important to me.
Do you have a playlist when you go in for treatment?
I don't, and that's simply because my treatment, it takes me longer to drive there. My treatment's 30 minutes. And so, as you could probably guess, while I'm there, I'm chatty.
What? No.
I know. And so, yeah, we have a good time. I'm talking to, obviously I gauge the room, right? But, I'm talking to other patients. I'm talking to the staff. all sorts of things. And, and I mean, I love all the staff at my oncology office. But they're busy people. So sometimes it's like, can I get up and get water for somebody and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, the 30 minutes I'm there, I'm just right.
Okay, cool. Building your tribe.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. And while I'm there, I actually have a different name. I'm Anastasia Beaverhausen. And the staff did, right? The staff decided that I am Princess Anastasia Beaverhausen.
Okay. Well, Princess Anastasia Beaverhausen.
I don't know where that came from.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
This has been such a fun chat. I thank you so much for this honor, because it is wonderful that we were able to have this chat.
100%. Thank you. Bye-bye.